Hello and welcome to our session one of Dune Adventures in the Imperium, which is our take on Dune, our playing of this setting in a way that maybe for some people they're not going to dig, particularly progressive ways. And we had a comment on our video last time berating us for not including torture. So thumbs up on that. Your salty tears are delicious. This session is part of the Gauntlet Gaming Calendar. This is an online gaming community that all of our sessions are run with safety tools, a consideration of players and characters' pronouns, and a code of conduct. That's all those things are really important to us. My name is Lowell. My pronouns are he, him. If you're curious about what the Gauntlet is, you can find out more at gauntlet-rpg.com. And if you've come here going, oh, what's this? Because you've searched for Dune AP and you enjoy the play, I probably have 200 or 300 other AP videos on my channel. And the Gauntlet has an even larger pool of AP videos to check out. So I recommend that you do that. So we are going to have a little setup here for this first hour or so, while we're getting NPCs and other things into place. Before we go too much further, let me talk about the lines and veils that we do have established on the table. And again, these are where we're at right now. We can add to these as we need to. Right now, we have hard lines on homophobia, sexual assault, and torture. And then we have veils, meaning a fade to black or a lighting from it for eye injuries and harm to children. We have asked first for PC betrayal, which is a good thing. Remember that if you decide or realize that there's something else you want to put on there, please mark that. And the X card is on the table if we hit something that we didn't talk about, we didn't mark in lines and veils, or if we start leaning towards one of these things, we haven't quite caught it. So just keep that in mind. Let me remind you that you've made a number of choices for your characters. And on the character creation tab, and I've down C16, I've highlighted in yellow, there's a list of the things you're going to be picking. You've got a trait to define that's going to define your character's reputation. You're going to give us the numbers for 3 of your skills. And you've got 2 focuses left to define. You've got 2 talents left to define. You've got 4 drives left to define, along with the drive statements for 2 of them. And then the ambition and assets are a little less important. But those things are out there. Now, let me go here. We should have our PCs introduce themselves. Tell us who you are as a player and introduce your character, give us pronouns, tell us something about them, who they are and what you're imagining for them. And we'll do that. And then we'll take a look at those NPCs. So I'm going to skip one over, and Danielle, can you start us out with introductions?
Okay, my name is Danielle. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm playing Ismina Corrigan. His pronouns are also she, her, and she is the swordmaster in training, the deputy swordmaster, which is kind of the sort of a functional bodyguard as well around the house and of important members of the house, sort of the eyes and ears of the swordmaster where he can't be. Her archetype is protector, and she is kind of her traits. She's pretty dutiful, she's cautious. Her family was originally connected with a different house and ended up coming to House Anthir after suffering ill treatment elsewhere, and so she appreciates the house's principles and emphasis on truth and on kind of truth first, and yet finds in her work sort of the necessity of applying that truth, and that truth without application is nothing. And sometimes in her line of work she finds it best to be quiet and or mysterious and not to speak sometimes is better than to speak. So that is sort of her deal.
Excellent. And we established that your family is also here, a few of them. They may appear. Let's come next to Hayden Byrne.
Okay, there it goes. I'm unmuted now. Okay. Um, Hayden Byrne. My name's Harry. I go by he, him. Playing Harry. Hayden Byrne also goes by he, him. Basically, kind of years ago in his childhood, he was a street kid, member of gangs on the planet that we're starting on. He was recruited by the house, which kind of saved him, and they brought him back to their original moon, trained him, brought him up, what's called, and using him as a what's called source upon the move to the new planet. And basically, I guess he's the newest in service compared to the rest of the characters, I would believe, which called and kind of a dull, boring personality. You know, you don't really notice him very well or anything like that. He pops up here and there, and it's like you didn't even know he was there. And don't get into a conversation with the guy because he'll just, you know, bore you to tears. But he's gonna be the sneaky guy in the pay of the spy master going forward. I think you're muted.
That was me cursing. That brings us to Stahl.
Stahl is from House Anthier, like everybody else. He's the advisor, also called a pollinator because he goes to these other communities, worlds, cultures, and plants seeds for our own house in our invitation to hold sort of these academic conferences about philosophy, allowing people to challenge our rhetoric and therefore able to improve it. And I'm sort of like the mouthpiece that goes around and tries to get everybody to come. What else? Stahl is just his first name. He doesn't have a last name yet because he comes from a family where the family name half of a word, and that's sort of like the hopes that the family pins on him. So stalwart. And then later on, when he's like older, he'll choose a last name and pair it together with that. He has 8 in faith, and his philosophy is a sharp blade. So that tells you something about him, I think. And he's higher on communication and discipline and has rigorous control as a talent.
Excellent. And then last but not least, we come to Seraphina.
I'm Brandon, he. My character is Seraphina Veer, she, her, who grew up on the home planetoid of Anthier. And from an early age, developed had a striking characteristic, which is that she never told a lie. Someone in House Anthier spotted this trait and had her tested, and the result was that she was sent off-world to the Marlock Academy to be trained as an empath. She did well enough to acquire the mark that some empaths wear for devotion to truth, and has chosen to serve the house in the marshal's service. She is soft-spoken, but very talented at getting people to talk about things. Fiercely tenacious in pursuit of the truth. And her motto is, "The truth will set you free," which she means in earnest. in a gathering, she is often the first to, often brought in to look at a crowd and get their, get a read on them, just by the way people are standing, how they are talking together. When she's not working, she has an inordinate fondness for harmonica music.
Excellent. So let's come now to talking about our house and the various people who are in these positions. So I've had each of you define 2 NPCs. If you haven't done it, that's fine. You can just say pass. If you have done it, and it looks like a lot of people have done it, then you can go. And I'm going to do each, there's a once round. We'll go twice on this. Danielle, who is the first NPC that you want to tell us about that you've added to our host?
Okay, so, and feel free to stop me with any of the details, or like, I didn't realize this was part of our thing, or if you want to edit something. This is Darius Nysa, the royal consort, and I had sort of headcanoned him as formerly connected, I thought steward possibly of House Zirat, who was our partner minor house before we started ascending, and now they hate us intensely. And I think that he probably met our ruler during, saw her during a lot of these meetings and a lot of these things, and eventually agreed to leave and come join our house. So I think he remains somewhat quiet and soft-spoken, which is a little bit antithetical to our house's ways. But I noticed there are a lot of face tattoos in our house and facial things as part of kind of our deal. I think a lot of wearing who you are seems to be a vibe. So I think instead of doing a cosmetic thing and covering up his facial scars, he opts to wear them openly as a sign of solidarity.
How long ago are you imagining that he became consort?
I think it's probably fairly recent. But I don't know how long ago it has been since this house hated us, if it's always, or it sounded like it was a more recent thing.
Yeah, I think saying it's a more recent thing is good. And it suggests that this is a second consort because there is an heir. So this is a new young person. Let me ask you this. So this is a person who's come from the house that now is embroiled and cannily in this assassination war with you. What is the general feeling about him? Are people, well, the Duke knows best, or are people wary? What do you think the general feeling is?
I think that people generally trust the Duke because they feel as if the attitude is that, things are supposed to be out in the open, but I think people are privately a little bit wary of him in general because he's still different and hasn't nothing has happened that has given him a big way to prove himself yet. But I think the people who work with him don't have any reason to suspect him, but most people are not that close to the ruler.
Excellent. Okay, got a little bit of distance there. I like that. Let's come on to the next. Harry, which NPC do you want to tell us about?
Okay, I'm going to tell us about Idris Cardano. She's our current spy master. And if you just look at her picture, in the universe where life extension is kind of, part of the universe, the spice melange, extends your life and everything like that. The fact that she looks that old tells you that she is indeed very, very, very ancient. She probably has a long history with this house in this position. Yeah, I'm going to say probably going back at least 3 or 4 dukes previous, if not more. She kind of likes to get her point across by telling, parables and stories. And in her older age now, she actually slips into third person when she's speaking sometimes, which can be a little bit off-putting. But I haven't really thought too much more about her than that because I didn't know how extensive you wanted us to go with them.
Let me ask you this. You're the character that probably has the closest relationship to the spy master, though there are other spies. Amongst the house, what do you think the general feeling about them? Is it fear? Is it admiration? Is it ancient grandma, or does she also blend into the background?
No. She's a much more regal figure, and when she's talks, people stop talking and listen to her. And I kind of see her as probably the only mother figure I had in my life, because I probably didn't know my mother. My father was a very bad relationship. Probably abuse and stuff like that there. And what you call it, when they picked me up off the streets, it basically saved my life. So she doesn't coddle my character, but she has taken a shine to him. And thinks that I have what it takes to be stepping up into that field. My character personally doesn't really like the assassination parts of the job, but with his thing is if he has to do it, he'll do it.
Excellent. Fraser, tell us about this heir.
Sure. What was the other role that I'm supposed to define? So after this, I can do it.
Advisor.
Advisor. Oh, okay. I thought that I was going to be below the heir, and I'm the advisor. No.
So there's someone who's senior to you, who is in that position. They're the person who handles a particular political thing or other thing, and it might be that you are the advisor for faith, and there's somebody who's a little more senior than you, but it might be just about politics or history or things like that.
The head cabinet person or something. Yeah. Okay. So the heir is Sequoia Dendron the first. I think we probably colloquially refer to them as just Sec or something. They have any pronouns, and I put they, them, and my idea was they're so young that they probably haven't chosen a gender yet, and so they're just trying them on still and haven't defined it yet. Kind of like in Red Threads of Destiny. Have you read that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
yeah. Oh
yeah.
Oh, very nice. That's very cool. Okay.
And they are very tall. They have natural golden eyes. I picture them as sort of like mid-20s in appearance. I don't know what that means age-wise for space peoples. And yeah, I think that's about it.
How are they still regarded as young? Are they regarded as coming into their own? What do you think? What do you think that is in this household?
I think probably young, and the fact that we were sort of put into a trajectory where we became a more important house made it so that they had to take on more responsibilities maybe than earlier than they would normally have been groomed to be able to do, maybe. So maybe like a little bit outside their comfort area, but also like very much willing to prove their worth.
So what is the relationship between Sec and Darius, the consort?
Well, I don't know. Danielle, do you have an idea?
I think that he's probably been like not super touchy-feely, because I think the consort is probably not that they're close in age at all, but I think the consort is slightly on the younger side, so it's one of those like young stepfather awkwardness vibes. But sex seems pretty independent, and I think Darius probably like acknowledges that, so they're probably cool with each other, but not overtly close.
Does that work for you, Fraser?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Then let's come around to Brandon. Brandon, which NPC do you want to tell us about first?
The first one I want to talk about is my superior, Thursa Lowe, who goes by she, her, although it is very difficult to tell because she never takes off her mask in public. She suffered severe facial burns in service to the house and either chose not to have them repaired or they were irreparable. It's impolite to ask. And she has worn a beautiful, detailed, but somewhat off-putting to some bronze mask. It has served her well in a number of cases because it makes her unreadable. She has a voice that is somewhat synthetic because her vocal cords were burned as well, and so her voice is artificial. She does not. She allows silence to speak for her sometimes, and uses few words rather than many. But there is no question that she has an incisive and extremely suspicious mind in service to the house. The threats may be on occasion underestimated, but never overlooked.
The justice that she oversees as the marshal, how would you characterize that? Is it balanced? Is it intense? Is it strict? What would be a couple of words that you would use to describe how people see that?
Well, she delegates that justice, of course, in the great majority of cases. Those who come before Thursa Lowe can expect no mercy.
Okay.
She has made it clear that her priority is the safety of the house, and that she will err on the side of severity where necessary. She judges very few cases, however.
Excellent, excellent. Danielle, we're going to swing back to you. Tell us about your second NPC that you've defined.
Okay, this is Anthony Zelf. He, him, and I think is the current sword master who takes that title very seriously. I think he's known for wearing very specific clothes that are associated with a specific time and place, like a lot of patterned satin and damask and like waistcoats, and like has like a beautifully patterned sword at his side, even if it's augmented somehow, like, you know, it's actually a laser sword or something like that, but it looks like a stylized old-fashioned one. I think he's loath to ever retire, even though he's been hinted that like you really need to train a successor, and this has kind of been pushed upon him a little bit, and he's still trying to do everything himself. His greatest moment was probably saving one of the members of the royal family in a dramatic way, maybe in a skirmish with another house, or basically foiled an assassination attempt, and is always intent on doing that forever.
And his, I'm guessing, did they take it at this office up more recently, or have they been in this office for a long time?
Oh yeah, he's been in this office for a really, really, really long time. Pretty much.
How now you're kind of his apprentice, right?
Yep.
Has he trained other apprentices before you?
I think he's kind of really done a wonderful job. He hasn't really needed an apprentice until this is something where someone was like, really, you should. I think perhaps there was like a close call where someone was, you know, there was an attempt, and it was like, honestly, if you get killed in one of these situations, now that we're a rising house, that's going to be really bad. So I think Ismina is very devoted to the ruler and consort for giving her family advantage in, and he's like, all right, okay, you can follow me around, but their styles are very different. Like Ismina has like a gun, like she is not opposed to wearing armor, and looks a bit more like a soldier, and this is just the aesthetic does not fit in his mind. It's just, no, this is how you do it. But I think he's not necessarily opposed. I don't think he's malicious, but he's just set in his ways, and
Okay.
he's like, this is how you do it.
So he's had assistants but no apprentices, and you are the people are like, well, why did he choose her? Okay.
I think it was a well-placed suggestion from the Duke that was like, you gotta, and like, here, this would be a good option. I think probably gave a list, and he had to evaluate the list and picked her.
Excellent. Then let's come back to Harry. Harry, who is the other NPC that you have come up with?
I came up with the treasurer. His name, their name is Osmond. The idea that I had was that, okay, I probably should change the pronouns because I'm not very good at at what you call it, the speaking, using pronouns. I'm sorry if I'm making mistakes like that. But the idea I had was that in the military, they became like the rising star. Okay, sorry, okay. So what we're known for militarily is the logistics and the quartermasters. Right. Yeah. So he still holds the rank of captain in the military, but the trainers and the people that trained them were, he's a gifted star in that field, even amongst, the best here. So he rose quickly, and he, placed in as treasurer. And I was wondering whether or not he might have had Mentat training as well or not, but I don't know if that's a decision you want to make or.
No, I think that's fine. We haven't established a new one with any kind of Mentat training. Maybe he's gotten at least some of the basics to supplement his skills. I think that makes sense. I like connecting to that to military very much.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and change his pronouns just because I don't want to keep messing up.
Sure, sure. Whatever makes you more comfortable. Okay. Fraser.
Yes. So
who is the second NPC that you've come up with?
I think her name is Match Peak. She's advisor / conductor, so she receives all the information and then arranges it for the person who rules us.
The Duke?
Whatever they're called. Yeah, the Duke. I think she sort of functions like a Mentat in that it's hard for her to do empathy exercises, to engage with people directly, and more sees people as like parts of a machine rather than the sum of a whole, that kind of stuff.
So maybe a little bit, we know that besides the Mentats, there are also the Bene Gesserit and other messenger services and things that have various forms of mental exercise and training. So she has something like that.
Yeah, I called her a pantomath. She just knows a little bit about everything.
How old do you think she is, or how old do you think she appears?
She probably looks. She's an advisor. I think she probably doesn't care about her appearance too much, and let's say that she's pretty old. Maybe not as old as the Idris,
but definitely
getting there.
old.
Yeah.
She's taken the spices people do to have a relatively, relatively useful appearance, but her has been around for a long time. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still shopping for an image I like, but it'll
Okay.
definitely be something bogish where
Okay.
they have weird stuff on their face going on.
So that's a placeholder image you've got.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And last but not least, Brandon, let's come back to you and get your second NPC.
My second NPC is the chief physician of House Anthier, Dr. Hayward Sung, who goes by he, him. Dr. Sung lost a hand in a boyhood accident. Perhaps it was a fight. But his talents led him to become a physician and to rise through the ranks until he achieved the post of chief, which he has held for about 5 years now.
Okay.
Since the last chief retired. He is not a warm person. He's a little more efficient, but his touch is surprisingly gentle, notwithstanding all of that. And he has a near mentat knowledge of poisons and drugs. No matter how new something is in the planetary scene, if it has been published even in the most obscure journal, it's likely that Dr. Sung knows about it.
Do you think he came up through independent medical training or through the medical school, or did he come up through the we know that part of the house thing is these biomedical chemicals and so on. Did he come through that thing? What do you think the path was?
I think he spun off from being a research biologist. In fact, that he decided he became more and more interested less with the sort of compounds that were being produced from an industrial perspective, and more about their workings on the body and the intricacies therefrom. And that led him to basically change careers at a relatively young age.
Excellent. So we've got 8 sort of the house major positions, including the 4 superiors for our PCs, plus some additional characters there. I've added images and names for a few others, just so you know that we have them on there. We'll kind of figure out who they are. The most important is Duke Philippa Anthier. She is the ruler of House Anthier. She's an older woman. She's had at least one consort before this. There is only one child, the heir, and that may be a question of why there weren't other children. That may be a thing we have as a story at some point. But she is well regarded and respected, and has taken the house to another step forward, a dangerous step forward, but an important one. We have our envoy there, Alan Vathana. We have our counselor being the role of the person who goes out with the local populace and finds out what's going on with them and tries to keep them happy, and is the person who stands between the ruler and the local populace. We have Nikos Zirat, who is another person from Zirat, who is a scholar. And I think probably there's a little bit of tension between him and our consort, in that he left Zirat a long time ago, and now he's probably a little suspicious. So we've got him in there. And then our war master is Orestio Roshan. They are the battlefield commander. They are the person who leads the troops. I also have 3 other NPCs in there. The ruler of the house that dislikes you, House Pericos. They just don't like you, and they're a major house. And then the house that wants you all dead, we have Duke Jahan Zirat, and they are there. Those pictures, I tried to make Duke Jahan look as unpleasant as possible there. There is an Imperial agent of the change. I have her name elsewhere. I'll get that, but I've got a picture for her also in there. Now, I would like to go around and we'll do at least once, maybe twice. We'll see how our timing works in here, and get each of you to define a relationship with another PC. And for that, I have my relationship cards here, and I've got these backstory cards, which I rarely get to use. So let me get a good one. Danielle, I am going to start with you.
Okay.
So some time ago, you and one of the other PCs did a secret job, a secret task for the house. Who was with you? And what do you think they did to earn your trust? Maybe you can give us a little sense of what might have been the task.
Let's see. And the other house industries, do we know what they do? It said that Paracos is disturbed by our rise in biomolecular things. Does that mean they do something
Yes,
similar?
their primary focus is on that, and you are impinging on their big thing.
Okay.
I think we know that Zirat has at least some of a philosophical religious domain, but a little more conventional, but we don't know what their main industry is. So feel free to define that.
Okay. I think that Ismina was sent to do some like recon on some of these developments. I think probably to at least to get intel on Prakos and like what their biomolecular things are, not through our philosophy and science, but more from, or not from our philosophy side, but more from the scientific side, to see and also just kind of to make sure to see how much further ahead they were than us, and if they had maybe gained some of our secrets. And I think Hayden would be a natural choice for this as well. I think that, what did Hayden do? Yeah, you can.
To earn your trust.
Yeah. I think that it was, and feel free to interrupt, Terry, if this isn't cool. I think that when it was, it was like Ismina was kind of told very subtly to kind of like investigate, and had to go talk to Idris probably about this. And when told, I think Hayden probably volunteered. And that was unusual because most people don't most people are satisfied with like just attending to the house, but the fact that he was willing to like expose himself, because like if you go on this thing and you fail, then that can like demote your rank a lot, and people really guard that closely. So the fact that he was like, I'll go and I'll do this, and like didn't care about his rank as much as he did like getting a good job, and probably came up with certain ideas like, if we go in here, or actually make sure that you scan this, and probably held her back from like while they were doing some recon stealthily.
Harry, does that work with you?
Oh yeah, that sounds like exactly what you would do. Yeah, because what you call it, I think we built up probably a good camaraderie. We probably faced a little bit of danger, during the mission and stuff like that. So, it's probably a friendly relationship.
Yeah, I think when Idris was like, oh, Hayden volunteered, I think she was like, who? And then when she saw you was like, oh, and just like does a lot of being stationed places, like, oh, that's that guy that's always in the corner of my eye, but she didn't have a face to a name for him.
Yeah.
Nice. Harry, I'm going to come to you next. You were in a situation that went wrong, went south, went pear-shaped, however you want to say it. And one of the other PCs showed up unexpectedly and kind of pulls you out of that. So who is it? What was going on? And maybe how did they save you?
And it doesn't have to be a physically dangerous situation. Nope. It could be like a socially dangerous situation. So yeah, with the way that he puts his foot in his mouth, I would say I'm going to probably point at Seraphina, even though the way I look at it, I think we might have the coolest of the relationships, in the fact that, because you're so about truth and I'm just so willing to, deny the truth or use the truth for other ends and stuff like that. But you stepped in when I made a social faux pas and, saved face with me, which I found very surprising, because I thought we were, almost kind of like different sides of the coin. Something along those lines. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It very much does. Seraphina's made it clear that you're valuable to the house, and her personal feelings are neither here nor there.
Let's then come to you, Fraser. You were in a situation, an event, with alongside one of the PCs. Maybe it was a meeting. Maybe it was a diplomatic envoy. However it is, and you thought you had the measure of the other PC, like you thought you kind of knew, but they did something unexpected, like that maybe kind of changed your sense of them. Who do you think that was, and maybe what went on to kind of change that for you?
Maybe Seraphina in a meeting, I see that they have a really high understand, even more than me. So I think maybe they kind of pick up on the nuances of something that happened in the meeting that I didn't even get. And then maybe after, when we broke for a rest or something like that, she told me something about an individual at the meeting, and I was like surprised that it was such a nuanced take on them. It was probably like some Sherlock Holmesy thing where like they wear their bracelet on the left side and they must have been hit in an accident 4 months and 5 days ago or whatever. Something like that, maybe. I don't know. Some kind of insight.
Yeah. So you had a more general sense of them, and then you realized how insightful they were. Does that work for you, Brandon?
It very much does. I think it was probably something like, and she would have phrased it like this: I'm sure you noticed how sad the envoy was when you mentioned such and such. And Seraphina phrased it as if, of course, you had noticed all these things, and she was simply conversing about it with you rather than she had seen it and you hadn't.
So you were
But it
nice
was,
about it.
well, almost deferential, and it was you had a profound effect on one of the people that you were talking to that you didn't pick up on it. And she said, I'm sure that it will, the further conversation to try to find out why your words impress them so will be fruitful at some point.
Nice. Seraphina, let's come to you. One of the other PCs reminds you of someone from your past. Who is that, and how does that complicate things?
With Danielle's permission. Ismina reminds me of my first love. One of those opposites attract, someone I met when I was off-world at school, and who was full of life and action and such, and they have some characteristics very much in common. And that complicates things because Seraphina's got such a very strong devotion to duty, and she feels that, and so she's a little wary of interpersonal entanglements. She didn't quite get it drilled into her that you're not allowed to have interpersonal entanglements, but something pretty close to it. And so she's kind of conflicted about that in a very real way. That relationship was not to be. She had to come back to the house, but here now is someone else who is very reminiscent of the person, really the only person I've ever loved.
Does that work okay for you, Danielle?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, if any PC romance stuff, we'll always check in at regular times, make sure everybody is cool with that, and so on. So Danielle, I'm going to come back to you, and you can choose one of the two PCs that you haven't, or if you want to choose an NPC, whichever you feel fine. So you heard a rumor, gossip about someone that you kind of bought into, but then when you actually interacted with them, you kind of like that flipped on its head, or you realized it wasn't true. What did you heard, and how did you then realize, no, that's wrong?
Okay. I think that this is Stall. And I think that what she heard, since she's a little bit, has a tiny bit of distance from the philosophy arm of it, I think she heard of their or his prowess at debating, and I think that there is this kind of like reputation of like not doing it for fun, but like yes, he toys with his philosophical enemies and skewers them on and the wall, and he keeps the philosophical notches in his belt of like how of these foes he's defeated, and was like, oh gosh, this person sounds like a real jerk. And then I think probably had to, while being stationed, like the higher up she got until she was right under there, probably had to maybe be his bodyguard for one of these debate things, and found someone who was very genuinely like wants to peel back the faulty layers of other people's reasoning so that it's like good for them as well. This idea that kind of like, I genuinely want, you know, it's good for everyone if you can like, you know, cut out the bad parts of their thinking, you know, if that's okay, and if you want to alter that Fraser.
Does that work for you, Fraser?
Yeah,
And is that true? Is that the
It
way
is.
you are, or are
It
you
is
hiding
true.
that? Okay.
I'm helping.
Okay.
I'm a helper.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it made her feel a lot more like she trusts him a lot more now. And kind of when she runs into that, she's like, well, I guess it's up to you guys to make sure that your philosophy doesn't suck, I guess. Kind of on you.
Excellent. Hayden, you, some people might say swiped, some people might say liberated, some people might say you just found a trinket or an object that belonged to one of the other PCs. What is it, and why haven't you given it back yet?
Let's think here. Okay. With Fraser's permission, maybe I'll go with stall, and maybe I found something that I think might be not detrimental to the house, but something that opens up an avenue of attack on him if it fell into somebody else's hands, and something along those lines. And then as I kept it and whatever it is, I'm thinking maybe a piece of art or I don't know, something like that might be philosophically dangerous for him. I'm not sure.
Fraser, any input you'd like to add?
We're all about philosophy, so it's possible in opposing house made propaganda that conflated our philosophy with something we didn't want. And it was really palatable to people who would see it.
And you've kept a hold of this, Hayden?
And the reason is because I'm actually starting to enjoy whatever it is, the tract or whatever, whatever it is. I've actually come to think, you know, I kind of dig this, you know, and he doesn't really need it. And, you know.
It's a Banksy, it's an original.
Yes. Excellent. Stall, who do you have like an admiration for? And again, PC or NPC, and what have they done recently to kind of reinforce that sense that you admire them?
I think the most natural one would be Corrigan with the way that truth is applied, since I'm sort of like synonymous with that idea where I go and pollinate things. I think that everything else is like stagnant water that you're just staying in. Basically, if you're not using it, it just goes bad. So I think it makes sense that it be that. What did she do recently? Is it possible that what is her role? Swordmaster?
Actor, bodyguard, sort of.
Well, I was thinking maybe somehow maybe you were part of the reason why we had the resources to take the planet. Like you're literally our truth in action.
like we didn't have enough people to kind of invade and take over, but like Ismina and her family were like, okay, we can do this.
That makes sense.
I'm cool with that.
Excellent. Last but not least, Seraphina, you and someone else, either we have you have an idea for Seraphina. Danielle, do you want to suggest that?
I meant for one for Ismina to Seraphina and not to step on whatever.
Well, I was just going to do two, but if you, I'll come to you if you
okay.
want to throw something else in. But let me do Seraphina's, and then we'll check in with you. Seraphina, you and either PC or an NPC have some kind of matching adornment or tattoo or significant object. What is it, and what does that kind of celebrate or commemorate?
Ooh. What a wonderful wide open question. Let me see if I can. Tattoo or an object?
Or even a ring, clothing, metal, things like that.
I'm going to say it's the consort. There is nicely. And it's something from attending the Moon Festival on the planet, where we both happened to be, which was a seasonal celebration, and they gave out a few fortunate people got these decorative rings, which are in the have a moon worked into their edges, and they're supposed to betoken good luck and prosperity.
And what does it mean to you? Is it just that, or is there more to it?
To me, it was a moment of absolute clarity that told me what I was doing was the best thing that I could be doing. I had a vision, if you will, in the wee hours of the morning, just as the festival was waning. Drink and drink and fatigue, having danced all the time, and all the costumes, all the adornments, all the decorations and the lights and such like that. And for a moment, I was somewhere else.
Excellent. Yeah.
And I felt called. And that's when Seraphina went from being an enthusiastic girl to being to being what she is now. That may have been what kept me from rushing out of the Marduk school.
Ooh, interesting.
Was that moment of clarity? Well, it's a hard school. It is. I envision it as like a Zen school, brutal, in the mental and physical discipline it requires, and I was having doubts. and that resolved them all.
Excellent.
I jokingly referred to it as when the moon spoke to me.
Danielle, you had another one you wanted to suggest?
Yeah, I just kind of like had a brief idea that
Sure.
when Ismina's family was new, I think, and still establishing their reputation within the house, I think maybe there was some kind of minor scandal. I don't know if something was stolen or something, there was a mole, someone had leaked something. And for some reason, suspicion had fallen on Ismina, and she had to go before someone, and it was only due to Seraphina's truth knowing ability that she was able to verify that Ismina was telling the truth and was not actually involved in whatever was happening. But it wasn't necessarily that she was asked per se, but maybe perhaps volunteered. Like people would have been willing to let her take the fall for it, but Seraphina managed to intervene and use that so that people knew Ismina was trustworthy, which I think probably helped establish them.
It's a nice echo back to the idea of truth that we've had throughout these characters. That's very cool. Are you good with that, Brandon?
Absolutely.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take 10. And when we come back, we're going to have our scenes of arrival on Barandar and checking in and seeing what your day-to-day is and your role in the house and all of that kind of thing. So we'll come back at about a quarter after the hour, looks like. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording. Oof. I will never get used to that voice there, and I have not yet found a way to turn that off. We're recording on Zoom, and there's an artificial voice that tells us when we start recording or not at home. If you're listening, that's what I'm complaining about. All right, so we take up with, the last, you should end up with, now I have to check. Now you asked the question.
Oh, sorry.
No, I can't remember what it is now.
Yeah, it's 3
It's 3.
total.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Okay.
3 what?
3 talents. You should end up with 3 total talents.
Okay.
I keep translating everything to PBTA in my
I
head.
know.
Like, your playbook moves.
How many moves do you
Playbook
get?
moves.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got 2 talents defined, and I'm keeping 1 open for in play.
Mm-hmm. And again, as I said, we'll check in like next session or the session after to see if people are happy with the choices that they've made, because sometimes they don't, the description of talent isn't clear about what it does in play, and sometimes you'll realize you've bought a talent and Lowell doesn't call on those things as much as you maybe expected him to, and that is fair to change out in response to the way I run. So we take up with Barandar, planet in the Barandar system. Your moon, that was your previous household, has been essentially emptied. Again, populace would remain, some of them, but skilled people, the highest level of your personnel, those things would have been transferred over to this planet. And Barandar from orbit has a darkish cast to it, blues and grays, and even from orbit, you can see the masses of those industrial cities that are like scars across that planet. Those are those centers in different places. And we see that great cylindrical guild ship there in orbit, impossibly huge to even imagine how they construct these things is beyond us, because inside of those are the ships that will transport you, and they have been coming down to what is going to be effectively the capital of Berendar for you. And let's give that a name here. Let us call that, let's find a nice one that has a ring to it, Storan, Storan. And of course, people have been scouting. Some of you have been here before over the last couple of years, and people have been arriving. We are the last of the ships, the final ship holding the Duke and the royal family arriving here. So we're going to do that kind of montage. We're going to come to each of you to see what you're doing, what that tells. So in this, when the camera comes to you, Ismina, where do we see you? Are you on a ship? Are you on the ground? Are you in the capital? Are you in the royal household? Where we see you? What are you doing?
I think you said that the ship that has the royal family is coming.
Yeah, it's the last one of the last ships to arrive.
I think she's on planet, and as part of the people who are securing it and going ahead, and I think that she's in the hangar by the landing pad, following Anthony around, who's like loudly directing people to kind of make secure, and it's like, it's gonna go check to make sure things aren't going to blow up. And she's doing the last recon and checking things. She's even trying to make sure, checking the weather, trying to see if there's anything they can do to change, to make sure that it's not too windy or hot or cold or anything for them.
What's the thing that has you worried right now? Like amongst the many issues that you have run through your head as you're doing this, what is the thing that for you is that's what I'm worried about? Got to keep an eye on that.
I think since we're having to build this city kind of in and amongst some of the established urban things, she's unsure how secure some of the infrastructure is. And she's worried that, no matter how safe we are from people, she's not sure if there's some kind of, hidden tech from previous things that's still embedded, because they haven't been able to get all of the tech people out to do a full sweep.
And one of the engineers will come to you and we'll say, we did another deep rock scan as you asked, and we did spot some unusual soundings, and he'll kind of pass you the data pad to look at what he has there, the numbers on that for you. And he says, do you think it's something we should worry about?
I think she scans it. Does it say like if it's right? I assume that they have the shortest path possible from the landing pad to like the house. Does it? I assume that these are kind of across that path.
Yeah, they're subterranean. You were worried about the sort of the deeper infrastructure, and they got some soundings there. Let's actually do a roll to kind of do like an analysis here. What do you think is the appropriate drive and skill that you think are applicable here for kind of reading this, the danger of this situation, or understanding what you're seeing?
True. Discerning details about the situation around you sounds like an understand.
Okay.
Probably,
Yeah.
even though that is,
and what is your drive that's pushing you to this?
I think duty for sure.
Okay. All right. And when you add those two numbers together, what do you get?
I get a 11.
11. So here's what's going to happen is right now it's a difficulty 1. Which
Okay.
means if you get one success, I'll answer a question, give you some basic information. If you get more successes, you can either throw that into the pool for momentum, or you can ask additional things. So you're going to roll 2d20, And do you think that, do you have focus under understand?
Nope.
Okay, then we don't
Not
have to worry.
yet,
We
anyway.
don't have to worry about that. You roll 2d20. You for everything that rolls 11 or under is a success. If you roll a 1 or a 20, go woo, or uh-oh.
All right, and 20s are a critical fail.
20 are complications. They're not failures, they're complications.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Narrative booster rock.
exactly.
Well, I got a 10 and a 15.
Okay, so you got one success.
Yay.
So you're looking at this, and it looks like it is some kind of built a deeper infrastructure there that didn't show up on sort of the initial passes. You can tell that. What is it that you want to know?
I think she wants to know, since this was inhabited before and
Mhm.
the house that hates us is also in this system, right?
That is true.
I think she wants to either know or figure out, like, if they also know the weaknesses, if they knew the weaknesses of this planet, like, while we basically wants to know if, like, someone else will set something off. Like, can she tell if there's anything?
Yeah, you'll
Under-
spot on one of these things a couple of places that suggest to you that somebody dropped like you've done drills to check more recently for subterranean things, and you kind of spot those fractures in places, which says to you that somebody else has been here recently and has sounded for this and probably found these subterranean things.
Okay.
So we'll leave on. We'll kind of cut away as you're coming to that realization there. Hayden, in the midst of all this arrival, are you part of the advance party? Are you just arriving? Where do we find you?
Yeah, I'm definitely part of the advanced party. My job is probably staying inside the Capitol and going around and finding out what all the gangs in the city, because from my time there, gangs basically ruled anywhere that was urban in this place. And I'm kind of tempted to just go ahead and what you call it, the third talent or whatever, called Find Trouble, and use that to make contact with the what you call it, the black market scene, and I would think that Idris probably gave me enough money or whatever is used for coin to pay these people the right amount of money to make sure that none of the gangs, at least in the capital, are going to make any noise on this auspicious day of the house arriving.
And what is that? It's Find Trouble, as we call it? Okay, but do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then this is, you don't have to roll for this. Then I think we find, when the camera comes in, we find you in an urban area building, a little more threadbare, a little more run down than sort of the new places that we've seen, and we see this figure who is greeting you, and he says, it's been a very long time, Hayden.
Yes.
I thought you were dead.
Yes. Well, more things change, the more they stay the same. So.
Well, you are the same since you are alive and not the change of dead, so.
Yes, which is going to lead to some interesting times, especially with the change coming to this planet.
Yes. Is this coincidence that you re-arrive? Are you with the smugglers, the Imperium, the new house, or something else?
Let's just say I have multiple taskmasters.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
And I know the one that you want the most, which is Cash.
That Cash is a master that I know well. He doesn't make outrageous demands of me. So what is it that you need?
See, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk towards him. Are we sitting or
Yeah, let's say you see kind of that low seat, drinks have been brought out.
Yeah, basically, I take out a wooden box from what I was carrying, and I place it on the table, and I slide it over to him, and I keep my hand on the box. When he reaches for it or whatever, and puts his hand on top of mine, I tap his hand real quick or whatever, and what you call it, tell him that this is just the first of many payments, as long as you keep your people in line. Of course, the second you guys step out of line, you'll have to deal with me. And I don't think you'll want to deal with me now. I'm not 10 years old anymore.
What do you think it is to make this impression, to kind of change his response to you?
I think it's going to be a communication, and
Yeah.
the tap was me using my focus of neurolinguistics
Okay.
to drive the correct words home that'll make him double think of, I haven't seen him in a long time, but he looks a lot different, and he's working with whoever, multiple people. He might be somebody but more dangerous than he was when he was a kid.
Excellent. And what drive do you think you want to combine with that?
Let's hold on just a second. Drive. For this instance, I'm gonna go with power, because I'm kind of feeling a little bit powerful coming back in a raised station or whatever, and maybe getting a little bit of revenge about these people who probably treated me quite badly in the past. So that's a communication of 5 and a power of 7, so it would give me a 12.
Yeah. And if you roll a 5 or less on this because of your focus, that counts as 2 successes.
2 successes. Okay. And I didn't know, are we using the roll with me or thing, or can we use dice?
If you have dice at home you'd like to roll, you can roll them, or you can use a roller. Either way.
All right, so I'll just keep the 2d20, and that's an 11 and a 3. So that's like 3.
3 successes. So I think this is because you've got the money as an asset. We'll kind of establish that would lower the difficulty from what I probably would say a 2, but let's get down to a 1. So 1 convinces him, like he's like, oh no, yeah, no, Ben Kenny is, we are on your side. Now you've got 2 extra successes. You could throw that in momentum into the pool. You could use those immediately to like ask a question, or maybe establish another benefit, like put a trait on him, like well disposed or afraid or something like that. What do you think?
Okay, I'm going to save 1 for the momentum pool for everybody else.
Okay.
And I'm going to use 1 to I'm going to put I want a piece of information from him.
Okay, what's the question you want to
I'm going to ask him is have you seen my father lately, and is he still alive?
Says your father left, and by left I mean had to get out. The last I heard that he was in Sakanagan, which you would know is a real, like, that's a lawless smuggler, off-world point. Like that's not a great place.
And that's when I released my hand off the box of the money. And as he's collecting it up, I just say it'll be in your best interest if he shows up, shows his face around here anytime in the future. Come to me, and we'll give you a lot more reward.
I understand. Family.
Yes.
What can you do?
Yeah, my smile on my face completely disappears, and he now sees a dead cold stare, and I get up and leave the cantina or whatever it is we're at.
Excellent. Stahl, where do we see you? What are you up to in this arrival? Are you working with your people here to kind of get them settled? Or are you talking with the populace? Are you somewhere else? Where do you think you are, and what are you doing?
Probably trying to survey the religious component of the cities to see Yeah, I think like the religion established should say something about the previous tenants and if they're going to be predisposed or not happy with our philosophy coming in.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So you're moving around now. Is this you alone? Is this you with people? What do we actually kind of see for the montage on screen of you gathering this information?
Probably alone so that people kind of act as they would. I try to blend in and just be like another person at the church, or I don't know, a tourist at a landmark construction or whatever just might be around.
Yeah, so you're moving around the capital, checking in with people. What do you think is the appropriate role to do this kind of investigation of these religious things?
And it would be a skill, is that right?
You combine a drive and a skill.
Probably understand
That makes sense. That makes
faith.
sense.
Understand faith.
Yeah, faith is perfect for that. And so you've got, do you think this falls under cultural studies?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's what you should say. That's the absolute exact right response.
Well, I just have to check myself.
Yeah. So that's a 14. And with that focus that you're using, if you roll a 6 or less, that counts as 2 successes. I think the difficulty right now is a 2 for you.
Okay. All right. So
Now let me do one. I'm going to go one before we go on. Now, there is one momentum in the momentum pool. Let me tell you what you could do with that. You could spend that to give yourself an extra die, and then you'd be rolling 3d20. Just saying.
I'll let people have it who aren't maximizing their
Okay.
skill and focus. And it looks like I got a 3 and a 3.
So that's 4 successes.
Oh,
So
sounds like a good game.
yeah, rolling low. It's what you can do. So right now you're going to have 2 momentum to use immediately on extra things. But let me give you the basics of what you're going to find here. You will find that people have been here. Speakers, talkers, street philosophers that have popped up apparently over the last 18 months, and they have been seeding that mimetic distrust of sort of more practical and stoic philosophy. Someone has been through here seeding essentially a thought pattern that is in opposition to your faith. So now you've got a couple extra sets. You could use that to ask questions, or you could use it to add like aspects to what's going on. If you want to use this to change things, to address like a trait that you could utilize later to actually kind of try to destroy this thought pattern, or you can put momentum in the pool.
Is it possible to imbue it with like a sort of weakness in that,
Yeah.
like, kind of like in Dune, where he's like, all these people believe this thing, but we all know thousands of years ago that didn't work because we figured out it was stupid, that kind of thing.
So what do you want to
Flawed.
call? So that's your first momentum spent. What do you want to
Okay.
call that trait on faith around the capital?
Flawed or untested.
Okay. So I'm going to write that down. And what that does is, that can be used for fictional positioning later, because it kind of hangs on the scene. But the other thing it does is if it works into the scene of you doing something, you can reduce the difficulty of the task because that trait is hanging out there for you. You got another momentum. Want to know something more? You want to save it?
Yeah, how old is this? Like, is it the primary faith? And like, is faith a dominating presence in this culture?
These people have lost faith. They have been abandoned. The empire has been sitting with its boot on their throat for the last 5 years. So it's very broken. The Bene Gesserit have not been permitted to kind of come down here, while the Imperium has been here. But the other thing you realize is that there's certainly a cell, probably with a leader, of these people present pushing this mimetic thought pattern. So you can identify that there is an active agent currently on site somewhere in the capital pushing this. Does that sound like fair info?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's come to Seraphina. When we come to you, what do we see you doing?
I believe that now the apparatus for keeping order here is headed up by the incoming house, of course. But I imagine that there is the constabulary, as it were, are locals.
Well, no, they are Imperial Guard. They are
Imperial Guard.
There is a Imperial force that has been maintaining the peace. But you'd guess there's probably some local structure below that probably informal.
That's fine. I'm going to talk to the commander of the Imperial Constabulary.
And you will arrive. It is much more a barracks and a fortified location than it is any kind of helpful administration. These people are here to keep order, and they are packing up even as you arrive to leave. But you bear the marker of the house and the marker of the marshal, and so you will be brought in to speak to their commander. His name is Poran, and we'll say now, who are you precisely?
My name is Seraphina. I'm the deputy marshal of House Anthier.
Yes. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you. Your wishes are much appreciated. I am sure that the strength and order of the Imperium that has been here during your tenure will be missed, but we will do our best.
I very much doubt that we will be missed at all. Mm-hmm. We have been keeping the lid on this kettle from boiling over for the last 5 years.
Tell me, if you would be so kind, who among the constabulary here can be relied upon, in your opinion, to do their job, and who not?
What do you think it is to convince this reluctant bureaucrat to go along with you? What is the drive skill combo that you're using to get this done?
The drive is duty.
Okay.
I think, and the skill is communication. I'm trying to get him to open up, and I'm going to use my rapport.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a right specialty for that.
Yes. So I'm basically saying, I'm stepping into your shoes. We who have to deal with this sort of thing understand one another, and it would speak well of you to hand this off in a seemly fashion, and perhaps, who knows, maybe it will even get back to someone that matters.
So you need 14 or less on the 2 dice. And if you roll a 7 or less on any of them, you get 2 successes. So let's have you roll 2d20.
So that's just one success.
Just 1 success. He is very clearly on his own sort of bureaucratic path. And he looks at you and he says, there's no locals. We are the only people who are in charge of anything here, and we are leaving. See this building, this bunker, Imperial property. We're dismantling this tonight. You'll have to choose your own path. See, my practice has been when I see somebody, the locals trying to maybe organize people, I put them up against the wall.
If I may, I'd like to back up and use a talent that I have.
Oh, absolutely. I'm willing to roll
which
that.
I forgot about.
Okay.
Because I haven't used it yet. Which is passive scrutiny.
Okay.
Which is to ask a question as if I'd spent momentum to continue.
Okay. So essentially, you may be trying to read this information out of this obnoxious response that he's giving. Okay. And what it is you can tell that you've hit a sore spot. Like clearly there is somebody in the local area who, how do I put this, who has been doing the kinds of politics that you're talking about, but has been evading this commander's, because this commander would just grab him up by the collar and execute him. I think, I mean, you are an observant person. I think there is that bit where as he's talking to you, your scan is going across the papers, since a lot of the work here is done with paper, and you will spot a name. Like it strikes you, it's in so many places and it's clearly a local name. That name is, let's give him the name Mulav. And you're pretty sure that's who you're looking for. Was there anything else, Vice Marshal?
I don't believe so, Commander. Please, please accept my best wishes for success at your next posting.
And I wish you good luck with this planet. And he will let you go out, and you can actually see that they have their engineering core, like literally taking down the plascrete walls and things, and taking this apart and hauling stuff to the landing pads. You have the sense that the Imperial Guard, the Imperial forces here have been told to bring anything you put on that planet, take it out. We want it to come back. You're going to have a chance to follow up on those things in a second. But before that, all of you on your various comms or communication things here. Right now, you're using open comms, just with some code talking right now, because you haven't had a chance to yet set up a real infrastructure for that. So you've got passphrases and all those things. That's going to be assumed to be in the air here. But you will all get a call that will say, your presence is requested at the Duke's chambers. She wishes to speak with the general staff and the key assistants here. And I think that whatever you have on your plate, you kind of have to put that aside, and we will see you heading to this Imperial set of chambers. We're going to see the NPCs that we've just introduced a little while ago arriving there. We see the security. Let me ask you this, Danielle. What is the primary color of your house? Like what is the color that defines it? We know that the planet is sort of blues and grays, but the household uniform, what color is that?
I think it's red, like a very deep, like a solid, not a maroon, but kind of like a solid muted brick red kind of a thing.
So
Not great for camouflage, but good for standing.
So yeah, we see that color being put up here to cover up the markers of the previous house and so on. Hayden, what is the sort of the procession or the entourage of the entrance of the Duke like? Is it more military? Is it a very formal ceremonial arriving? Is it more casual? What do you think we see on screen for that?
I think it would be slightly imperious. I mean, what you call it, but there'll be, of course, there's no fanfare or anything like that, but it's very efficient. Everything is done, what you call it, with military polish.
Mhm.
What you call it, the soldiers, are walking, upright. What you call it, everybody's, got their head on a swivel, stuff like that. But it's, it looks like an imperial procession. I mean,
They're coming down out of the large ship there and moving along. There's the inner guard. This is probably the first time we've actually seen the sword master on screen, walking behind the Duke and her consort, and some of the other most senior staff arriving. Stahl, the heraldry of the house. What is one like symbol that's on it? An object or an animal or something like what is something that's in the heraldry that we see?
What about a cliff that is being beaten by the waves? So it's something immovable, but something that's still shaped by something that strikes it.
Nice. And that kind of almost sort of Greco-Roman sort of abstract cut style with the waves coming up. Okay. So we see those markers, banners of the house being placed. And Seraphina, we mentioned before when we were talking about the setup of this world, the kind of wildness of the weather. What do we see on camera, on screen right now that illustrates that to us as people are arriving? What is the weather doing that's wild?
Right now, there are in the center part of town, there are blinking amber lights up because there is a stage 1 ruin storm in the vicinity of the capital. This is the least of the ferocious bits of weather that sometimes come out of nowhere, but they generally have warning. There are 3 stages. One is the kind of where it's extremely unpleasant to be caught outside and unprotected. It'll damage the paint on nice things and so on and so forth. Up to 3, which is like category Category 4 or 5 hurricane, batten down the hatches. No, the capital's never been hit by a Category 3 storm, but they've been recorded elsewhere on the planet.
Especially because we know that we've got these old residues of these gravatic experiments that are causing a lot of these weather problems. And most of those took place a fair distance away from the capital. So yeah, we've got those lights on. Maybe the marching and arrival of people is a step quicker than it might otherwise be as people go in to get under cover.
Flags are whipping against the flagpoles a little bit, clank, clank, clank kind of thing. And there's anybody looking into the middle distance, he sees a haze, on the horizon that blots out things in the far distance.
We're going to take another break, just a quick 5-minute break to walk around. And when we come back, we're going to meet the Duke, and they're going to explain the situation and talk with you, and you'll have a chance to interact with some people, okay? So we'll take 5. So we see the large chambers. The engineers have been through here over the last few months to A, check everything for security, but B, to sort of redo it from the stark brutalist architecture that was demonstrably part of House Cameron before they departed. We kind of they weren't Harkonnen level, but we definitely describe them as being kind of a house of overseers here, and they're working to cover things. Rooms have been reshaped, paint, tapestries, all of those things have been done, but there's just the edges that you can tell that suggest that. And there is a large table, an enormous long dining table. There are no chairs there, so everyone is sort of standing, with the exception that a chair has been brought for Idris Cardano, sort of as a mark of respect for her. But you will see the Duke Philippa, survey the group, notes and marks everyone who is there, and will say, the situation is more dire than perhaps you'll imagine. We are caught amidst many things. House Cameron fled 5 years ago, and in that time, the Emperor has overseen this planet. The Emperor has overseen this planet with an eye to economy and control. As you can imagine, because of the split that happened with House Cameron, we can certainly expect spies, traps, thefts. House Cameron made away with a good deal of the trained population, the skilled people. Those who had knowledge and information but who refused to depart were killed. So we have a populace that bears no love for the Imperials, bears no love for House Cameron, and we can begin from the assumption that they bear no love for us. That is something we must change. There are many things that we are going to have to deal with: infrastructure, populace, defenses, acquisition of knowledge, infiltrating local resistance, smugglers. All of those things are tasks that are on our table right now. We have the weather, as you can see. I have made repeated entreaties to the Guild regarding the reestablishment of the weather satellite that held this firm for some time. The cost for that is dear. We must show a profit to the Landsrat. We must turn things around here before the possibility exists for us to gain control of the weather in this system. We also have the issue of the gravatic anomalies, all of those things, that danger that poses on so many levels. And of course, our enemy houses. While Pericos will be maneuvering in the background, they are no less dangerous than those who are openly our foes, House Zirat. There's probably a moment when, of course, she turns and looks at the consort and she looks at the scholar and says, so while Zirat is the obvious threat, Pericos is the blade in its sheath, waiting to be drawn out on us. Now, there is an Imperial agent of change who is present, who will be overseeing the transition. The Imperium is withdrawing quickly. I do not think they're going to give us time for much of a transition, so we must leap into work, especially in those flashpoints where we can do more than we might otherwise. It will tax all of your skills. I have had an invitation from Karanka. That is the supply planet of the Guild in our system. It exists for minerals and other productions exclusively for the Guild. It is a stopover point for them, but there is an overseer that manages it, and we wish to keep on good terms with them. So at some point, it will be necessary for us to pay a call or to have them here to pay a call. Otherwise, I'd like to stay as far out of Guild business as is possible. Before I speak to some of you privately for some assignments, are there questions? And there will be, like, some people will ask some things about requests for certain supplies, or where quarters are supposed to be, or how things have changed. Do you think that get all the character names, gonna take me a while. Ismina, do you think, Ismina, that do you have any questions? Would you ask anything there?
No, I think she'd be torn. I think she would maybe say something like, are there any plans to combat blades and sheaths with more blades of our own out of them?
It's a reasonable question. I think right now our military is going to be spent on securing the capital and securing key sites here on planet. Once we know that, and once we know what kind of recruitment and resources we can draw from the planet itself, we may consider a more active approach. Hayden, are you asking any questions? Are you saying anything?
Nope, he's standing there completely dead still, just keeps his eye on Idris, and he doesn't like to talk when all the fancy people are talking.
Oh yeah. Because whenever you do, people turn and go like, who is that? Who's going? Stall, anything that you would ask?
Okay, I have a weird idea.
Sure.
So Thinking about how all of these challenges might fit together, as well as what I saw and planted in the trait of the faith there. What if we propose some kind of like faith games? Like I was thinking about the Colosseum, you know, like I'll give you death and they'll love you for it, except that it's like a game specifically about ferreting out people's whatchamacallit, ideology.
It's an interesting idea, Stahl. Take it to the psychotheologians and work with them and see what you can come up with. Once we have a better sense of where the population are on the mimetic graph for religion, then maybe we can attune it that way. That's a very good idea. Seraphina, anything that you would ask?
Your Grace, the Imperials preferred blunt force to working with the local populace and leaders with regards to maintaining order. What promises can we make?
In what sense do you mean, Seraphina?
Need to get the local leaders on our side and to incline them to the proposition that that we will actually be setting up a system of high and low courts where something will matter other than influence and rigid adherence to a set of dictates they have no participation in.
For the capital, you may announce a general amnesty for all persons.
Thank you.
Any crimes against the Imperium, anything that will go back, you may clear on that. Afterwards, you may set your people to establishing whatever local judicial and reporting systems you wish to do. I will have money set aside for you to both gain informants, but also show that we are benevolent. Hearts and minds is vital to what we do here.
Thank you, Your Grace.
And the Duke will say, I will be meeting with people. Let me speak with Hayden, Seraphina, Ismena, and Stahl in my chambers. And people will kind of, there's that look around, and she turns. The only person that follows behind her is the bodyguard, our sword master, who goes in, checks the room, that kind of thing, and has the four of you come in, and then he'll set himself inside. Like, he's clearly going to hear what the discussion is, and you see her maybe start to say something, and then she looks down and she says, I have a mission for you four.
Your Grace.
You have a few days to deal with matters that you need to here in the capital, and to assign your subordinates to handle some of your tasks. But there is a task that has multiple dimensions to it, and I need four people who I can trust. I have, through our network, discovered that there is a place that is a hub, is a nexus for the smugglers and the off-worlders It is a city that lies closer to some of the gravatic dangers. I know that its infrastructure is on the verge of collapse. I want you four to go figure out how to stop or co-opt the smugglers, the off-worlders who are coming in to strip the infrastructure, and any of those kinds of criminal networks, including off-planet spies from the other houses. This is the place where they will be. But I also want you, as you can, to win the hearts and minds of locals there. If there are movements that are planning to foment rebellion, uncover those, deal with those. And just to demonstrate that we are not going to leave people out in a lurch, Isman, I want you to keep an eye and think about what could be done to establish actual defenses at the city. It is called Saknagan. I have maps as best I can. They are outdated. You'll be provided an ornithopter. You can decide how you wish to go in. We have a few contacts on the ground there. You can go in as off-worlders. You can go in as members of the house. You can change out your identities as you wish. Resources will be provided for you. It is not a small mission. Hayden, I trust that your local knowledge will come in handy here.
Yes, the name of Saknagan has already been brought to my attention. It might have a few complications, but we will get the job done.
Excellent. Seraphina, I expect for you to ferret out the truth.
Of course, Your Grace.
And Stahl, I expect you to make our truth there.
It will resound.
And she will say, you are dismissed. You have a couple of days before you need to head out for whatever is that you need to do before you leave. And there is that gesture of dismissal, and she waits. Do you think? What do you think the gesture is? I mean, is it a bow? Is it a hand raise? What do you think it is? The sign of acknowledgement here. Danielle, what do you think?
I think probably like a forehead touch to a chest touch.
Kind of an echo of a religious kind of gesture. So we'll see you make that and then head out. And we'll do that scene where the four of you have a few minutes to speak with one another before you head your separate ways. Hayden, is this the biggest sort of group of senior people that you've been like on a mission with?
Yeah, I mean, usually my job is pretty solo. I know Zmina is very capable, but and I don't know if the field's right for the preacher. I think Seraphina will probably do well. And she has some inner fortitude.
So what do you say to the group, Hayden?
Okay, so I already made contact with the local underworld figures here in the capital. Saknagan was already mentioned. I might have a personal conflict there, but it should not interfere with the job. If it does, I will take care of it immediately.
So
Thank
how
you.
interesting do you anticipate this to get, Hayden?
Well, let's say either I'm coming back with all of you or I'm not. It's a probably a vendetta level,
Exciting.
which means that when we go in, I'm going to have to definitely be more surreptitious than.
Exciting is the word, isn't it? Isn't it?
What did you say? Sorry?
Exciting is the word.
Yes, interesting.
Like dancing on a knife blade.
Yeah, so you at least want to change your identity going in, Hayden?
Well, I'm pretty sure I can just get away with being in the shadows. I'll probably just dress in a I don't know. It depends on our approach, but I just don't want my presence being there to be something that marks us out right away. So in some fashion, I'm going to have to be hidden when we make our entrance.
And one of the things is, I'm going to go to game mechanic-y here just for a moment, is you've got a couple more assets that you can establish. So like Hayden, one of the things you might write down is another assets are alternate identity papers.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll definitely do that.
Yeah. Stahl, what's your reaction to this task?
Well, my first reaction is to find out what the primary thing they're smuggling is and then just legalize it.
Well, the problem is that they're shipping it off planet and we're not making money off of it.
Yeah, but they will be able to, like.
So in other words, what they're smuggling is taxes.
Well, but I mean, if we legalize it, they don't have to be smugglers anymore, right? They're just.
If we permit the taxless export, then we're not doing our job.
The Imperium will be angry.
You just have to figure out how to bring it under, how to license it and get your tax stamps on it.
Yes. Yes. As long as we're getting paid, it shouldn't be a problem. But right now we're not being paid, and that's what the house needs, that perhaps this time more than anything.
And there are two dimensions to this. One is that there are people smuggling resources off from the planet, or smuggling. There are probably smugglers that are bringing things in outside the Imperial auspices. Those are probably people you can talk to. And then the third are that there are people who have been coming and essentially going to some of the abandoned cities and plants and industry stuff and ripping out the materials and the wiring and that kind of thing, and shipping that stuff off planet. So that's the sort of the third factor in there.
Okay, they're junking our raw material. Yeah, I think Ismina will turn and raise an eyebrow at Stahl and be like, so pollinator, in order to spread, you must ensure the flowers are first in bloom. Is there anything you need that people will be able to hear our truth?
I think we have to identify A, who will listen to us, and B, the major players of A.
I can help with some of that. And if I can't get people in to listen to us, then I'm not doing our job.
So, so let's consider you have a couple of days before you need to go. So let me go around once or twice and see if there are people you want to talk to, your mentors or other people locally, things you want to do to kind of set things in motion, or assets you want to get put together to have on hand when you go to out to there. So I'm going to keep my marching order here. Ismina, what is something that someone you want to talk to, something you want to do here before you head out on this mission?
So her task is to set up defenses. right?
Yeah, one of her tasks is going to be to survey. Essentially, you're the muscle, but they also want you to survey the city. Like if it had to be defended, how would you set that up? How would you do that?
Hmm. I think she might, like, she should probably talk to the sword master, but I don't know if he's gonna be super helpful. I think she might talk to the war master,
All
to
right.
get an idea of how like that siege mentality of like, how do you preserve, what perimeters should she be preserving? Because I think her focus has been a lot of individual technique and a lot of skill individually, but this is thinking on a larger scale.
So you'll head down. The War Master is definitely back on the tarmac in the winds, directing people places. But they'll see you coming and smile. They know your parents. They have a great respect for you, and they will walk you over to places a little bit out of the wind, and they'll say private conference with the Duke.
For if it's not one thing, it's another. First the launch pad debacle. But I need to bend your ear on what you look for when you're surveying. Perhaps there might be an assignment. They would have called you, but they probably need someone slightly more expendable. If
You are not expendable. Never think that in this household.
True. She kind of nods and smiles and is like, indeed. If you were securing a city from threats internally and externally, and you also had a team to ensure the safety of, what is the first thing that you would be looking for?
Check and see what the existing intent of the walls, intent of the city is. If a city has been built and then it has been built with a purpose. So analyze that and figure out how you can use that to your ends. Are you going to be surveying defenses elsewhere?
Would it be incredibly gauche to say, and did the Duke say anything about how secret we had to be about that?
No. I think the Duke assumes that you will speak with your fellows.
Okay, yeah. Then I think Ismina relays the name Sokvegan.
Yes, I have seen that on the maps.
It's apparently a hotspot of smugglers, of people junking this planet before we can even take stock of what resources we have. And we're also bringing the pollinator and our truth experts.
Interesting. It's going to be quite a team.
Plant our own seeds.
I tell you what, give me a few hours to finish up here, but I have in my quarters a copy of the Book of the Rock. It is a treatise on defenses and sieges and so on. I'll give you a copy of it, and perhaps you can peruse it as you survey the city, and it will give you some insight.
She smiles and says, I knew you would know exactly what I would need, Orestia. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Be well, and I will speak with you later. And you may put down the Book of the Rock as an asset on your character. Hayden, what do you want to do as prep before this, or things you want to set up here before you head out?
I will get names of the better clans to work with, to hire from, and get that information to Ismina and for the defenses and stuff like that to help out with that. But I'm gonna like open a scene with me coming into the room where Idris is, what you call it, you know, not you know, not her personal quarters, but
Right.
her office.
Seated and listening there, she'll look up and she'll say, "Ah, it must be a difficult homecoming for you."
A little bit, and it's already getting a lot more exciting than I thought it would be. I thought it would at least take a month or so before things came to a head. But the man who, you know, is my father is here, and he's most likely in Saknagan. And with this, he'll reach down and tug at his sleeve or whatever to, you know, covers that there's a small scar coming up on his wrist or whatever that he touches every once in a while when he gets, you know, flustered. And I'll make sure that the rest get back, but depending on how it goes down, I might not be back.
That man is not your father. House Anthea is your father.
Yes, but I mean to remove him as a threat, because if we do not remove him as a threat, then it puts everything in jeopardy.
That is well, but only think of this as you coming back. Do not start out with a shadow across your plans.
Yes, I know. I should know better. It's just a little bit of heavy emotion. I didn't expect for it to be so much so soon. But no worries. I'll have it under control. And I you know, bow or do the thing.
She says, "I want you to know that I would grieve if you did not return."
Yes, and I do believe you, and I thank you for that and everything else that you have done for me. I just hope that I can repay it with my deeds going forward. And yeah, he tries to shuffle off because he, you know, it's just he doesn't do a strong emotion very
Right.
well.
Nice. Stahl, what about you?
I want to talk to a psychotheologian.
Okay. So we will assume that probably in that whole sort of advisor and scholar category, they have the raiments of your faith and various data notes, and they will be essentially in trios working together on various plannings, and you'll go down to that department and you'll be greeted by what do you suppose is the title for the head psychotheologian?
The player of games.
Okay.
We gotta, all I can think about is the Culture series because that's one of the books.
I'm thinking the glass bead game at this point, but the psychotheologian, greetings to you, Stahl. Welcome. Will you sit? Will you deal a hand?
Of course.
And essentially pulls out the equivalent of a tarot deck with various signs and symbols there, and we'll do that and say, why have you come to us this day?
I need a game tailored to bring out the ideology of the people. I want to know what their manner of thinking is, and who among them could be swayed to join us, and who among them aim themselves against us.
Interesting. Perhaps we define a game that is open as to what victory is, that is open as to what it means to win. There are certain tracks that we can head down through that, to use that to identify.
I was thinking this game would require multiple players, and so that each player would make a collective on a team, that they would be able to form a united front against an alternate force, and then each piece that they selected would reflect perhaps an ideology, such as in chess. If they were a rook, they would only be able to, or they would be drawn to going in smooth lines only, and maybe not think about the entire board like a queen.
Are you imagining this as a formal game, as a portable game, as a thought experiment, as a sport? What is it that you wish?
I think it would work best as a spectacle for the people, to draw them.
That is more challenging. It's on several levels to convey that. Let me bring that to the colloquium, and we will speak to the High Kniza and see what they have to say. And you will give us some time?
Of course,
Excellent.
anything
Excellent.
worth doing takes time.
It does. Well, may the cards always fall in your favor.
Thank you. And to you as well. I bet it is mine. He's probably like, fuck this guy.
And Seraphina, what is it that you want to do before you head out?
If Mulav is here, I wish to find them.
Okay.
If Mulav is in Sagnagan, I wish to gather as much information as I can on them.
Oh, I think just because you said, I think Mulav has to be in Sagnagan then, like he's had to flee to there. So that'll be like the first piece of information. But yeah, what do you want to roll to get more info, to add, to get some more questions?
This is understanding and justice, I think.
Oh yeah.
Because although actually, I think I can make a case for understanding and truth this time, because I want to know him.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think body language is going to fit, because
No.
more of a general thing. But you'll need 16 or less on 2d10. And we have a momentum in the pool, which you should use, because
yes,
it
I'm
will
going
be
to use
empty.
it. I'm going to use it. So, and 3 successes.
3 successes. So I'm going to give you 3 questions. Or if you want to save the momentum for other things, but let's start with the first question. What's the first thing you want to know?
What do they care about?
They care about
other than the ordinary things everybody cares about.
No, their focus seems to be on getting food and resources to the needy, like redistribution. That includes redistribution through theft of things like that. That seems to be their motivation, and to the point where you suspect that they might have had a loved one that starved to death or died because they couldn't get resources, and that seems to be like the primary mental focus for them.
The second is The second is where can I find them or
Oh, okay.
locate them easily?
How about you write down an asset that is like list of Mulav's contacts as a resource. You have some names, some places that you can use to narrow down your search. Third question. One of the other things you could do, just I don't necessarily want to interrupt your thinking, but doesn't necessarily have to be a question. You could say use this last momentum to essentially spread the word that you're a good person, that you're a positive representative.
I'm going to spread the word that that a House Anthier has that House Anthier is sending an envoy from the Marduk School.
All right. So that's a piece of gossip information that's out in the atmosphere, kind of a trait that you can draw on next time to help with your task. Seem reasonable?
Yep.
I think that's where we're going to stop for tonight. I will, when we start next time, have a chance if there's any last little things you want to do. But otherwise, we'll take up with you ornithopting over there. I have to tell you, in my mind, ornithopters always look like big dragonflies. I don't know what they actually look like. So that's always been my thing. Would everybody be okay with a quick stars and wishes to kind of walk through things that you liked? Let's do a round of that stars, and then we'll come back around wishes, especially in terms of things you want to see more of or things you want to see less of, that kind of thing. So Danielle, are you okay starting us out with the star round?
Yeah. Gosh, well, stars to everyone being so cool. Stars to Harry for, I really liked how you incorporated a lot of details into your role playing. Like, I didn't know anything about the dad, and then later on through the little details, like dropping in that he was touching his scar and using words like the man who is my father. Oh, this is not a reunion. This is a person he's trying to kill. Like, I just really, really loved that kind of slow reveal, and you just kind of wove that in so naturally to how you did that. That was really great. I loved the Lowell, the NPCs speaking. They sounded like Dune, and like even the words, which is, I think, getting the quality of language is really difficult, and so I really enjoyed that. Yeah, and Stahl's like games and like this development is going to be super interesting, and obviously Seraphina's like formal, like her kind of like formal bearing, and yet just sort of like impressing everybody, like kind of a very like big hammer and velvet glove sort of a thing, which will be really interesting to see how that develops. Yeah.
Awesome. Harry, stars you want to throw out?
I've never done this before. Okay, so stars and wishes.
Oh yeah, so this is our debrief system. Basically what we do is when we go on the stars, if there's, and you don't have to on any of these, say something you really liked, another player's thing, or a thing you liked in the game, or opportunity, any of those things you want to mention.
Oh, yeah. I'd say it's good stars for everybody for role playing. I think everybody got a nice good chunk in there. The names that have been popping up have been really cool. The Ruin Storm and the Psychotheologians. I'm sorry, those are awesome. They lend a lot more atmosphere to it. And like I said, I want to know what the Psychotheologians look like.
Awesome. Fraser?
Yeah, thanks for putting up with me, everyone. I always just have these weird little tangents that I throw out, and then Lowell has to roll with it. Like, what if we just captured the population with a game? But yeah, I really liked how you set up all the vignettes. It worked to everybody's advantage. The creation of the NPCs was really good. The tying everybody together with those cards, that was really cool. Everybody just seemed pretty on point. We got lots of interesting answers to everything, and I'm really excited about the world and what's going down. There's a lot of interesting, even just like peripheral implications of the Imperials leaving, and like people rooting up the planet, and all this cool stuff going on at every level.
Awesome. Brandon?
Again, loved everybody's character. I loved the criminal contact and the hostility towards father. I loved the games. I loved Ismena's daunting task, and her desire to get right to it. And in terms of wishes, I want some inter-character. I want a little more inter-character, character role-playing.
Character RP. Okay. Yeah, we'll see if we can do some like nice paired scenes. Do a little bit of the Whedon switch up next time, and see if we can do that. Danielle, do you have wishes? So anything that you definitely would like to see next time in general, or for your character, or things you'd like to see less of?
Yeah, no, I think there's kind of a wish for myself. I think everybody had established kind of like a drive / ambition, something that hooks them into it. And I think if Ismina's main drive is like, I just want to do a good job, it's not as interesting as a character. So I would love to like find a hook or something that will help, or a flaw or something that will help the narrative kind of a little bit more, which would be great. I have a few ideas, but I'm not exactly sure. But yeah. And also playing somebody who's like battle tactician. Thank you for that book, because I'm like, this is my character. I am not awesome at coming up with these things myself personally. So if it's okay if sometimes I'm out of character, like, by the way, what should I be doing here? What would be the coolest thing for a very battle hardened person? Well, not entirely battle hardened, but yes. that yeah. And I've got a bunch of battles, so, but yet it's also a very intrigue game, so I guess like figuring out how to apply that, without just charging out with a sword and whacking people.
Absolutely. And since battle can be any kind of conflict, you can always apply that. Like maybe you approach social interactions like a battle. You have enough room that you can decide what your mode is for that.
Okay. Awesome.
I want to give you a thanks, by the way, again, for your wish from last time, for saying, hey, we need relationships. A, because it hadn't occurred to me, and B, because these backstory cards I almost never get a chance to, because most games have those relationship questions built in. So this was great.
I love them, and honestly, that's a star. I really enjoyed that, like, you were able to go through and pick which one to ask, which is such a fun customization. Yeah.
Fraser, wishes?
Well, I made another asset called a religious astrolab, a religilab, if you would. So a chance to use that. I'm thinking of like, he's been to so many planets that he's able to like interpret symbology and symbolism and all these different things to sort of like reverse engineer what the culture is all about and stuff.
Sure, but I'm going to ask you to describe it, and so we see what it looks like on screen. It has to look weird.
It's a projection from my mind. And what else? I kind of want to be in a position where I'm in danger and I don't know it, and the other characters have to help me, which is a little bit of a tropism for being like a monk, but also fun.
Absolutely. Okay. I will work to put you in danger. That'll be my objective. Finally, Harry, do you have anything you want to shout out as a wish?
Um, actually, I liked it pretty much all. I mean, I did like the Brandon's suggestion of getting some more inter-character scenes and stuff like that. Um, I don't know. Through these first 2 sessions, my nerves have been shot really because I'm just I'm just starting to get slightly comfortable. So I'm hopefully I'll get better as we go along.
I thought you were great tonight. Seriously, yeah, really dynamite all across the board. So,
Oh, and thank you, Danielle, for the nice words.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. This was a delight to run. I love great casts of NPCs. I love big open tasks. I love great characters like you have. I'm looking forward to next time. I'm going to stop the recording.